This presentation is about the REACH study in Thailand. The aim of the study is to understand vulnerabilities, agency, and resourcefulness of research participants living along the Thai-Myanmar border. Our site is located on the Thai-Myanmar border where the Shoklo Malaria Research Unit is located. SMRU is a field research site of the Mahidol Oxford Tropical Medicine Research Unit in Bangkok. SMRU has its offices and laboratories in Mae Sot, shown in the circle here, and clinics are located on both sides of the border. SMRU has provided free humanitarian health care for more than 30 years. We also conduct operational field-based research. This ensures that humanitarian care is evidence-based. Mae Sot is a growing border town. It's the main gateway of the East-West Economic Corridor and a main border crossing point. Mae Sot is also the destination and transit area for political and economic migrants from Myanmar. For this reason, many migrants are attracted to come to Mae Sot to seek employment or join their relatives already living and working in this area. Majority of migrants in this area are employed in agriculture, construction, and manufacturing. Most of them are undocumented, do not have health care coverage, and are very much underpaid. The major disease burden in this area are malnutrition, anemia, malaria, tuberculosis, mental health, alcohol, and drug abuse. The research reported here was an empirical ethics case study, embedding bioethicists and social scientists within a clinical research team. It is linked to 2 approved clinical studies, one on the treatment of uncomplicated malaria during pregnancy and another on hepatitis B prevention during pregnancy. It is important to note here that these pregnant women can access free healthcare at SMRU even without joining studies. Our study was a qualitative empirical ethics study. We conducted in-depth interviews and focus group discussions from December 2017 until March 2019. We had regular team reflections on the data, including discussions on the language and the meaning. We did open coding during and after data collection, and thereafter coding in vivo. The interviewers are independent of the linked studies and are experienced interviewers. They speak the local language, are ethnically Karen, and are from the community. To supplement the interviews, we conducted a participatory visual workshop with members of the Tak Province Community Advisory Board, or TCAB. The TCAB was set up in 2009 and made up of members of the border community. The drawings in this slide presentation are part of the collection of drawings by the TCAB created during the workshop. We conducted a total of 32 in-depth interviews and 10 focus group discussions with 4 groups of participants. The 4 groups are pregnant women participating or have participated in the linked studies and their family members, research team members of the linked studies, the TCAB or local ethics committee members, and persons who are knowledgeable about health on the Thai-Myanmar border. All study participants were aged 18 and above and provided written consent in their own language. This slide shows the different group of migrants. If we take a closer look, see blue font, we see a diversity among migrants. There are stable migrants, daily cross-borders, and unstable migrants. Amongst these 3 groups, the unstable group is deemed the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. They do not have stable employment or permanent homes, as they move from place to get work. They live on the Thai side of the border, in semi-permanent homes, and they work in casual jobs, and highly dependent on seasonal changes and agricultural seasons. They are poor, have low literacy, and very little social support. And as with other migrant groups, have poor access to healthcare. Please note that in our study, we focus on migrants and not refugees. Persons who have been granted refugee status are not considered migrants. Our results describe the intersection of complex structural vulnerabilities of daily living for migrants and the benefits and hidden burdens of research in this border region. We also found that women along the border exercise their agency when it comes to health and health research and are very resourceful in navigating their daily challenges. Our main finding shows that political vulnerability is the root cause of many vulnerabilities. Migrants face economic vulnerability, meaning they face unstable employment, are underpaid, and with no income security. This leads to social vulnerability, where they face family separation, they have to leave their family or children to seek employment, and have lack of access to education. Some face family conflicts and domestic violence and substance abuse. They also face health vulnerability. Because they don't have legal status, they do not have entitlement to seek care at public facilities, or they have to pay, which they cannot do because they do not have enough income. These complex structural and layered vulnerabilities make it challenging for frontline researchers to respond to these many needs. The institutional response at SMRU, providing free care and humanitarian aid in the community, is probably a better way to respond to such needs. It is both more effective or sustainable, and it takes some burden off individual researchers. By virtue of being undocumented, migrants are often fearful of being arrested and being deported back to Myanmar. They have no freedom of movement, and this can delay care when they have to confront with authorities when traveling. They also face language challenges, as they don't speak Thai. Consider this quote by a female participant. Regarding traveling, only when I come to this clinic I encounter this problem, because it's far to come. Because when we are confronted by police, he, your husband, can't speak to the police. When we're confronted with them, and we cannot speak to them, and we do not have cards or anything, when it happens like that, sometimes for us to travel somewhere we can't go, and we can't come to the clinic. In addition to that, migrants, both men and women, are often taken advantage of by unscrupulous employers. The hardships the migrant community face are significant, but many women we spoke to also find ways to navigate these challenges and rely on support networks, including their family, their employers, community leaders, non-governmental organizations, and research institutions. Some of their employers provide basic housing and protection from authorities. Consider these quotes from researchers. Some of the pregnant women say, I have a good boss. He has a car. And sometimes the boss will take them to the Thai hospital. I have seen this, yes, you're absolutely right. Sometimes their employers actually wake up in the middle of the night. The hardships are real, but migrants on the Thai-Myanmar border go to great lengths to participate in research, traveling long distances, often a few hours, and incurring risks. We asked participants why they join research and what benefits they perceive in research participation. They say research itself is an important source of support to meet basic health needs and increase visits to the clinic for checkups. For pregnant women, this gives them a peace of mind that their pregnancy is okay even if they have to make that journey. It is also a way to obtain extra money. The compensation they get goes a long way. Some women say it's a way to gain knowledge. We asked them, why did you decide to participate in this research? What made you agree? For me, I like joining all kinds of groups. Join all? Are you interested? Yes, I'm interested. Why are you interested? Can you tell us? To get some kind of knowledge. What kind of knowledge? For things that I never came across. For knowledge, I can study and learn about them. So despite lacking opportunity for education and they have high levels of illiteracy, these migrant women we spoke to had this resourcefulness and a certain curiosity to participate in research. An important finding in our study is that research has many hidden burdens too. The dominant concerns were burdens of travel across the border, as this picture depicts here. Other burdens are foregoing casual labor and care for children left at home, and being more visible as migrants. Some participants have to use different mode of transport to reach follow-up appointments. They go on foot, on trucks, and take boats across the river. They spend hours traveling, and some leave their children at home unattended. Seasonal challenges add to their journey, as they may have to cross the river and it might be flooding. With all these challenges, participants continue to show up for their appointments and appreciate the travel fees that they are provided. This quote illustrates this point. I have problems. I have to go pick up my children, 2 of them. I need someone to help. I told the ANC staff that I cannot come. I have to pick up my children. She told me, please come, and I thought, not too bad, I can come. On one hand is my children. In the morning, I have to start cooking, and at 7 a.m., I have to send them to school and have to pick them up at 12:30. There is no one else at home. My husband goes to the forest, goes to work, and finds money. Money is short. The first challenge reported by researchers is balancing benefits and burdens. How much burden should an individual participant be allowed to take on for the future benefit of their own community? In the linked studies, women had to attend many follow-up visits even after delivery. The second is duty of care. The SMRU setting is rather unique. It is not found in many places. It combines research and humanitarian care in a population that lives on the margins of economic, social, and healthcare developments. Researchers have to constantly balance their roles as healthcare providers and researchers. The third is fair compensation. Too much, and researchers worry about unduly influencing the participant, and too little, and they risk exploitation. Many researchers we spoke to prefer to provide more compensation if the study can afford it. These worries are exacerbated by a familiar cultural tendency of the Karen and the Burman. It is not to complain of hardship and to show gratitude to those who have helped them, even a small gesture. This could mean that it may be culturally difficult to say no when a researcher offers research participation. This questions if the consent is voluntary. Krang Chai in Thai, or Ana in Karen or Burmese, involves the desire to be self-effacing, respectful, humble, and extremely considerate, as well as wishing to avoid embarrassing others or intruding or imposing on them. Krang Chai or Ana can also mean participants want to reciprocate by participating in research. When we asked women about decision-making in research, we were pleasantly surprised. All of them made their own decision. We thought perhaps they had to get their husband's permission. This FGD with women illustrates this point. For you to decide whether or not to join the study, how did you decide? Did you decide on your own? Did you discuss with your husband? How did you decide? The answer: decided on my own. I joined myself. My husband wouldn't know if you asked him. And the following quote illustrates that they can politely decline to join a study by giving false reasons. This can also be explained by the notion of Krang Chai or Ana. They don't want to say they don't want to participate, but they give a reason or an excuse which is more culturally appropriate and acceptable. So what does this mean for us in research ethics? We agree with other scholars that group-based definitions of vulnerability is no longer acceptable. Researchers should be aware of specific background vulnerabilities in context. Vulnerabilities apply to families, not just participants. So our obligations are to at least not exacerbate them or create new vulnerabilities. In the case of our case study, that means minimizing follow-up visits and ensuring that compensation is adequate. We need to respect the agency of potential participants and recognize their resourcefulness. By making research available to them, research can offer many benefits, Some researchers were not aware of these benefits, such as increased time with healthcare staff, compensation, and opportunity to gain knowledge. Thank you very much for listening.